getting qualitative. Thank you so much. Who was that? Lawrence Udensi. Serene, sorry, I can't pronounce your other name, Serene. Was the water warm or cold? Sarah Sohun says, how did the crow bring the pebbles to the pitcher? Great. We are getting there. Muhammad, almost level of that. I'm not sure if that's qualitative. Samuel Kosipa, why was the crow dropping pebbles? Yes, wonderful, very well done. Abdul Hamidu, amount of water intake, sounds quantitative though. Muhammad Yunis, durability of the pebble, not sure if that's quantitative or qualitative. Takawira Chirume says degree or level of dust, sounds a bit quantitative, not sure. And Charles Kapka, type of vessel, okay. Younger Toti, conditions of the environment where the pebbles and water are in, all right, yeah. Mary Musungu, how do you feel after drinking water from the pitcher? Yes, now we are that's purely qualitative. Thank you. Kasludo, how are the pebbles dropped? Yes, very well said. Serene, was the crow satisfied after drinking water? Yes, and that satisfaction would be more the qualitative element of subjective experience. Thank you. How does dropping the pebble affect the crow? Yes, Rose, well done. Neki again, difference across season. What about in rainy season? Okay. Bakare, what is the motivation for the crow? Yes, motivation is qualitative. Zafar, level of satisfaction of that. Some of your answers sound mixed methods, and Dr. Abilsa is just commenting, you are teaching nice with example. Okay, Isaac says, how does the crow know the pebble will raise the water level? Okay, keep them coming. Where did the pebbles come from? What is your experience in dropping the pebbles? Okay, keep those coming. Very well done. Now I see we are connecting to the qualitative side of things. So just an overview of qualitative data is that beyond numbers, it is critical to understand why and how changes are occurring inside of a program. So when we talk about qualitative data, we are talking about analyzing, collecting, reporting non-numerical data, and it's abbreviated as QUAL. So a lot of us probably don't feel skilled enough, or yet we still have a lot of qualitative data in our actions of field staff and the affected people in humanitarian work. And also all the feedback we are gathering through accountability mechanisms of qualitative data. It is an ethical imperative. Otherwise, we shouldn't be collecting qualitative data at all if we cannot make the most use of that information. And the technical training is not as scary as it looks. Most people erroneously think that qualitative data is less valuable or less superior than quantitative data, yet there are good enough qualitative approaches. However, we have to remember that training is required and choosing how to choose the right method of your qualitative analysis. So what are some reasons why qualitative data analysis is important? So I'll capture 6 of them. One, it provides insights into changes in the program and can generate sensitive findings or uncover unexpected changes in a way that quantitative research doesn't quite capture. So a lot of our monitoring and evaluation has nuances, and these nuances that are sensitive and, as I say, the softer side of data are captured using qualitative methods. Number 2, it sheds light onto processes that led to the change. In other words, why or how it happened. Qualitative approaches are very keen on descriptive and explorative types of analysis. Number 3, we can capture change or lessons learned from different points of view. A very, very important distinction from quantitative analysis. For it allows the experience, knowledge, and expertise of the people involved to shape the findings, and therefore it creates deeper understanding of the change processes. So picture that qualitative approaches are emic. The investigator, or in this case, the M&E professional, is squarely involved inside of shaping the findings. In quantitative research, though, the investigator has to be very removed or objective, okay? Number 5, it results in generation of case studies or stories of change that can communicate in-depth descriptions, and this information is very useful. For instance, most of the marketing and fundraising materials are actually generated from qualitative methods, because here we are eliciting people's opinions, motivations, feelings, thoughts, attitudes, preferences, and needs, and so on and so forth. Then another advantage or importance, number 6, it is used when very little is known about a situation. So it can even be used at the beginning when we don't need to have any frames or any a priori knowledge. So you can use it without any clear or predicted indicators of change. So it's very versatile. So how do we choose the right method? There are 3 things we need to note here. We have to remember that all evaluations have to be systematic and logical. And we should consider what method would best answer our evaluation questions, be it qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. Sometimes we need to consider how to combine qualitative data with quantitative, and that will create a mixed method evaluation. So it has to be systematic and logical. And sometimes qualitative methods have been criticized for not being as systematic enough. And we shall see how to make our qualitative findings even more valid. Secondly, there are so many more qualitative methods at our disposal. Each one of the methods give different kinds of data. So you have to think about which method do I select depending on which data I would like to generate. And it all begins with your evaluation question. So you've got to decide which one method or set of methods is appropriate to answer your evaluation question. Number 3, you've got to know which data collection methods will be best so that we do this systematically. So as I said earlier, people think, oh, this is just easy. We just need to do a quantitative M&E and then add a few interviews and that's it. But in reality, using qualitative methods takes a lot of practice and training. So I'd like to hear from you again. What is qualitative data? What is qualitative data analysis or QDA? And how is it different from quantitative data analysis? So let me just take some more sharing now real quick, and then we move on. So I see a lot more examples, keep them coming. Some people still answering the previous question. So I'd like to know, how is qualitative data different from quantitative data analysis? Okay. Raymond had answered the previous question, where did the pebbles come from? Brenda said, what is your experience in dropping the pebbles? Rahila, what's the level of water before adding the pebbles? Rahila, I think that's more quantitative, but thank you. Nana says descriptive. Okay, yes. Mukesh says in-depth data seeking depth course. Very well. I'll take one more, then move on, just only in the interest of time. Okay, Abdul says data from words, pictures, interviews. Very well done. And can somebody distinguish it from quantitative? We got that. Isaac Made said it's not numerical. Very well said. So I think you know what we're talking about, and that picture there gives us that illustration. So qual is non-numerical data. You are all very correct. Words, images, videos, audio, visuals, and so on. Can be in the form of quotes, sentences, paragraphs, stories, studies, reports, and it can be from all kinds of sources, interviews, focus groups, observation. And the formats can be paper or electronic. Increasingly, we are now having a lot of data on social media. A lot of our elections, including the national election in Kenya, are now managed using qualitative data. And those kinds of analysis enable actual political parties to win elections. And of course, we have primary, which is field data, can be collected from interviews, focus group, observation, etc., or secondary data, already published data. You can talk about all kinds of historical records or artifacts and so on and so forth. So of course, QDA is about managing, sorting, and interpreting qualitative data. It focuses on organizing qualitative data into meaningful knowledge. So of course, you need to choose whether qualitative, quantitative, and mixed. Each of these methods has advantages and disadvantages. As you can see, in qualitative methods, we get in-depth insights and a predictive element for continuous data. However, a disadvantage is that it's not statistically representative, of course, because it's not quantitative, and it may require several sessions. It's very iterative or back and forth, and that may also be expensive and can lead sometimes to some misleading conclusions if not done by a properly trained person. Sometimes mixed methods balances the limitations of the qualitative and the quantitative methods. We find that even in quantitative methods, you can have some disadvantages, can be limited because of numbers only. So what mixed does, it provides stronger evidence, it's more flexible. However, it requires much more expertise and can be complex and requires more resources. So let's focus in on just 4 out of the very many qualitative data collection methods that are the most common. So we have observations, key informant interviews, focus group discussions, and interview schedules. I'll not focus so much on the others. I'll skip some slides on like ethnography, photo ethnography, census tables, seasonal calendar, document analysis. You can check those out on your own. So observations are ideal for collecting data about what goes on in practice rather than what goes on in theory. So that's very, very good field data collection method. Key informant interviews could be structured or semi-structured, and they rely on a list of issues or topics to be discussed according to the qualitative indicator that you have generated. And of course, focus group discussions allow participants from a sample or set to answer questions or offer opinions or insights. And an interview schedule can be organized around any key aspect of a particular subject or process, phenomenon, function, or organization. I'm not going to go into other types. I'm going to skip those slides because of time. For FGDs, typically you want maybe 6 to 12 individuals and a moderator who can extract insights, opinions, and reactions. And of course, the composition depends on the purpose of research. Some are homogeneous, some are diverse. And it tends to elicit more information than an individual interview because of the different views, beliefs, and opinions that are being engaged in dialogue. And then we have all kinds of different interviews. I'm not going to go into that, and all the other techniques, you can look at them on your own. So now let's look at how to map these main data collection approaches in the different stages in the project management cycle. So of course, at the planning stage, we can use qual methods to generate baseline data. Observation can give us a picture of what is happening in the project setting. Participant observation gives us a more emic or in-depth understanding of what's happening. Because especially we are in the backstage where there's no more observer effect. We are amongst the participants of the evaluation. And then key informant interviews can give us some project parameters. And because these are usually gatekeepers or community gatekeepers, it is important to have key informant interviews so that we have some idea of the most salient aspects to be discussed. Then, of course, seasonal calendars are some of the other data collection approaches that are very participatory, that help us understand the needs of the community, the different local events or micropolitics that could be also impacting the project implementation and access to beneficiaries. So you can have all kinds of indicators at the planning stage. For instance, you can come up with qualitative indicators like the functional capacity of a non-governmental organization. So NGO functional capacity or level of participation of women in local governance. Okay, recently we've been having push for more women in especially local governance in most of our African governments, but we want not just to have more women, we actually want to see what is their level of participation, all right? And then involvement in decision-making about service delivery, perhaps by citizens, level of employee satisfaction, changes in knowledge and attitudes, and so on and so forth. So in the planning stage, we know that we can do a SITAN or situational analysis quite quick. We can do a structured interview schedule and collect baseline data or a census table. And so this can be backed up by some focus group discussions. Remember that for smaller organizations, it may not be possible to carry out a very major or big qualitative analysis because resources have to be factored in. Now we can go to the implementation stage. Again, qual methods are used for routine monitoring, like observation. Just see what's happening in our project, who's participating, who is not participating. And most of the time, if you're the M&E official, you will be doing a lot of remote visits to different field sites to look at, just using observation. You could also use participant observation, key informant interviews to understand what is happening, focus groups, and all the other participatory tools that help us to get a wider perspective of activities and outputs in an ongoing way. We even have more methods like process tracing or contribution analysis, and these allow more formal testing of any claims that could be carried out. One of the challenges of smaller organizations that are trying to do large amounts of qualitative data, they may just claim to have some changes or contribution to changes. So it's important to establish how accurate these are, so as to either support or reject these claims. And so qualitative methods come in handy. Again, participatory methods, lots of inquiry using stakeholders, sense-making, consensus, and other methods are very important to encourage stakeholders to collect and analyze their own situations rather than generating conclusions from an external perspective. So there are methods to elicit a lot of great data. Now, in the other stage called outcomes and impact, we can use qual methods such as observation and participant observation to observe and understand the change, whether it has or has not taken place. They give us insights. For instance, some methodologies like most significant change, MSC, or outcome harvesting can use both thematic and narrative analysis, and each one of these methodologies has their own processes. And the most important thing to highlight, it's good to ensure that the findings of the evaluation are sufficiently robust. So what are the stages in qualitative data analysis? The first stage usually is to type the data, transcribe the data. If it is in audio, visual, or other formats, we need to type it up and then word for word, categorize the data, code the data, finding the themes, and then summarizing the data and drawing up a report and perhaps sharing it. So those are the stages in qualitative data analysis. Some tips: it is important to take notes and record as we go along. You can use software such as Microsoft Office or NVivo 10 to transcribe the audio recordings. In the age of ChatGPT, we are very lucky. We are able to transcribe word for word, and technology is helping us not to lose any data. And so once we have all of these responses, we can enter them into some software programs, especially for large data, in order to assist with coding. Coding means organizing or categorizing the data into meaningful patterns, and then summarization, reduction, and scoring before the in-depth analysis of various cases. So when do we say the process is complete? After we've identified and analyzed these patterns to form conclusions or interpretation. However, we know the process is iterative. We keep going back and forth. Sometimes we might go back to the field to collect a few more data points until when we reach saturation. Saturation is a common word that's used in qualitative data analysis to mean the point at which you do not need any more information. So in order to validate results, you may use the following strategies. Be a detective. And on the right, I've described each of these strategies. That means you carefully consider all of the data's cause and effect, systematically eliminate rival explanations until you make a final case. Another strategy is extended fieldwork, which means you collect data over an extended period of time. And then low inference descriptors, meaning you need to use direct quotations, participants' accounts, and field notes, including even in the reports. That is allowed to use first-person language. Then triangulation is very important in order to validate results. As I said at the beginning, that a lot of qualitative analysis is actually criticized for not being